From Washington, this is VOA News. An international coalition builds for the U.S.-led war on Islamic State militants. And Ukraine's prime minister says President Putin wants to destroy his country. I'm Marti Johnson reporting from Washington. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry is in Egypt on the latest stop of his regional tour, looking to forge an international coalition against Islamic State jihadists responsible for killing civilians across Iraq and Syria. Kerry's schedule in Egypt today includes meetings with Arab League chief Nabil al-Arabi, Egyptian President Abdul Fattah el-Sissi, and Egyptian Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukri. In a visit to Turkey on Friday, Kerry said roughly 40 countries have offered varying levels of support for the anti-IS coalition. White House officials are now using the term war with Islamic State militants in the same way they've spoken out against al-Qaeda and its affiliates in the past. VOA White House correspondent Luis Ramirez reports.
President Obama has more than once described the Islamic State group as a cancer. However, top U.S. officials have been cautious to avoid saying the United States is at war with the group. That changed on Friday when White House spokesman Josh Earnest characterized Mr. Obama's efforts against the militant group, also known as ISIL.
In the same way that the United States is at war with al-Qaeda and its affiliates around the globe, the United States is at war with ISIL.
Now, with a new strategy, administration officials are offering assurances that what is happening is not the start of another U.S. war in the region. Luis Ramirez, VOA News, at the White House.
Ukraine's prime minister says Russian President Vladimir Putin wants to destroy Ukraine as an independent country in spite of a truce deal. Speaking at an international conference today in Kiev, the prime minister said Mr. Putin's goal is to take all of Ukraine, which was part of the former Soviet Union. This is VOA News. Prime Minister Yatsenyuk praised the new wave of economic sanctions imposed on Russia by the West. The European Union and the U.S. have expanded sanctions targeting Russia's energy, financial, and defense sectors in a new push to punish Moscow for its role in the Ukrainian crisis. South African track star Oscar Pistorius has been found guilty of culpable homicide but cleared of the more serious murder charges in connection with the killing of his girlfriend Reva Steenkamp. The judge in the case delivered the verdict on Friday.
The accused is found not guilty and is discharged. Instead, he is found guilty of culpable homicide.
Steenkamp's parents expressed disbelief at the ruling. South Africa does not have jury trials. The judge decided the case with the help of two legal assistants. Nigeria's military says it has fought off an attack by Boko Haram militants outside the capital of Borno State and sent in reinforcements for the city. Military officials say the Islamist militants launched the attack Friday on the town of Konduga, about 35 kilometers outside of Maiduguri. They say militants suffered casualties during several hours of heavy fighting. There's been no independent confirmation of the fighting. The Ebola crisis, meantime, in West Africa has closed borders, and the international airlines have cut flights to the region. Kristen Roby reports from Dakar.
Senegal and Ivory Coast have closed their airports to planes coming from Ebola-affected countries, and many airlines have cut services to the capitals of Guinea, Sierra Leone, and Liberia.
It's really hampering efforts.
Alassane Senghor, Africa Director for the International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, says his organization cannot get staff into and out of affected countries.
The closure of the borders and all these things is not helping.
Kristen Roby for VOA News, Dakar.
Washington's Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction said the U.S. has provided more than $104 billion to rebuild Afghanistan, more money than the U.S. has spent on reconstruction for any one country in history. But John Sopko said in spite of the massive investment Afghanistan is unable to pay for and maintain the projects the U.S. started, while corruption and narcotics are flourishing. The bottom line, according to the investigator, it appears that the U.S. has created a government that Afghanistan simply cannot afford. The armies of India and Pakistan have stepped up efforts to evacuate thousands of people stranded by some of the worst monsoonal flooding the region has seen in decades. More than a week of heavy rains have led to floods and landslides, which have washed away houses and bridges, killing at least 474 people in both India and Pakistan. Officials say the flooding has affected more than 1.8 million people. And the father of teenage activist Malala Yousafzai has called the arrest of his daughter's alleged attackers the beginning of real hope for Pakistan. I'm Marti Johnson reporting from Washington.
That's the latest world news from VOA.